Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Manu from Piano Sight Reading, where I give sight reading tips to piano players. Now in this video I'm going to be showing you a sample from an interview I did recently with one of the creators of the Read Ahead app, Hardaway. Now in case you don't know, Read Ahead is a sight reading app. So it's not a note reading app, it's actually a sight reading app. So it has specific exercises to help you improve your sight reading. Things like improving your pattern recognition, improving your sense of touch at the keyboard, also improving your memory so that you can read ahead. All of these things, as well as sight reading excerpts and actual music that is used for sight reading, and it's presented in a progressive way with different levels. And so I had the pleasure of talking to Travis. Now I have reviewed the app on my blog about 2 years ago, and I also reviewed it here on the channel last year. But I really wanted to have a chat with Travis just to find out how the app came about, the story behind the app, and also to hear his advice when it comes to sight reading and why reading ahead is so important. And so I finally was able to talk with him, and in this video you'll see him demonstrating inside the app, showing you the different levels and the different types of exercises. So I hope you find it useful. And stick around until the end of the video because there's some exciting news about the app that I would like to share with you.
Yeah, looking at the app in general, from the top down, this is like the level of difficulty, just like you would get with a book. We sort of consider each level to be equivalent to a book. And in fact, the books are sold by level. And then you can go in to any section. The primary or preparatory section here is shorter than the rest. It's only one section long, although we're talking about adding to that. But the other ones each have 3 sections with 12 days in them. So the idea is you would practice sight reading. You would work with your teacher and say, well, how much sight reading do I want to practice? Maybe 3 days a week, 4 days a week. And you can set a goal for doing that. But that's how we get with this day structure here. So a day takes roughly, I would say about 10 minutes to complete, depending on how hard it is and how much you go back and play things. But each day is centered around sort of 3 pieces. And like I was saying earlier, we tried to use real repertoire when possible, although the primary level doesn't have so much of that. And then we have categories of warm-ups, which are in green. And these are exercises that prepare you specifically for the piece you're about to play. The touch exercises deal with maybe changes in finger position, or in this early stuff, it might be a very simple 5-finger warm-up exercise. And the memory exercises, actually, I'll show you when we get to one of them. But the ones in red are the actual sight reading pieces themselves. So every day more or less looks like this. And we do have a lot of instructions, and I feel like maybe that's old school and people don't like to read instructions anymore, but they are specific to the piece, and we'll have them for touch exercises and for the read ahead ones. Okay, so this blurring of the music is just so that you don't peek and start reading before you actually start the exercise. And you hit start, and in this case, this is just simple 5-finger position. I don't even need to play it. You sit at the piano. And again, this is the first warm-up exercise of the earliest level. So it's just getting your hands in the position they need to be in when you're gonna play. And I think everything through the preparatory level is in 5-finger position. And this just is keeping track of time for a later feature, how much time you're actually spending. Okay, and it draws a slash through it to show you've done it. So when you go to do the actual read ahead exercise, again, more instructions for you to read. And this is just telling you for the first one about what you're going to be doing for the first time, but later they get specific to the piece. So before you begin to play, you have a preview where you get to look at the music and find out anything unique. It's in 4, thumb goes in middle C, pinky goes on middle C, an octave lower than middle C rather. And then we do throw in quizzes. What is the time signature? So if you weren't paying attention and looking at that, you'll know, and you'll click 3, 4, and oh no. But the quizzes can be pretty tricky, actually. And they might ask you which hand begins playing first, or where does it change key? The quizzes adapt to the material and the level of difficulty. So you choose your tempo. So what we've done, and we saw like some of the other apps don't really like give you a suggested tempo. Every piece, the tempo has a recommended tempo that we've sort of chosen for that piece. And you can choose to play it up to 20% slower or 20% faster. So you just get a little and chip it here, and you can look at the first 2 bars and sort of see, okay, well, is that good? Do I want to take it at a faster tempo? And if you just think you need to go outside, you can actually set it for anything up to 200, which is too fast, obviously, for a beginner. And I'm not going to demonstrate it that fast because I'm afraid that with the bandwidth issues up here, it's not going to load. All right. This is again, so you're not previewing the music. You had your chance to look at it before. When you hit start, you're going to get 2 measures of click track count off, and then you're ready to play. And the music should always disappear on the downbeat. And I didn't even have my hands in position, so I missed the first bar. So, but anyway, so that's like the simplest exercise. Here's a later level touch exercise that has shifts in hand position. So it's got this sort of, it's not quite a change of register, but you know, these different sort of fingering exercises that you're going to see in the piece. So again, this is C major, 3, 4. 2 phrases with repeats. Oh no. Oh, it's back. All right. So the memory ones are a bit different. They're call and response based. And when we sort of started designing this, one of the theories was sight reading is something that involves many facets at once. You know, you've got reading, you've got decoding, you've got processing rhythm, you've got hands and timing. And it's so you have a bunch of different skills you have to put together. So we tried to separate out some of these skills so that you can work on them independently and drill down. With the memory, the idea is simply looking at the music, committing it to memory, and then playing it. And it's call and response. And so you go 1 bar at a time. And what's nice about that is you're reading 1 bar ahead of where you're playing, so that when you then go play the piece in the read ahead exercise, you're already used to reading a bar ahead of what you're actually playing. You can see that it tells you when to play. So you see the music, 2, 3, 4, you process it, and then you play it. You can speed it up and slow it down, but you can also choose how long you look at the music for. So like on easy, it's there for the whole bar. On hard, it disappears after the first third of the bar. All right, so let's see if this works. And so on, right? It's not, again, the most stimulating of our exercises at level 1. But the nice thing is, after you've played through that, you then go ahead, here's the whole piece. Again, your preview, no changes in hand position. Oh, how many measures contain whole notes? Now look, I wasn't actually reading, so I don't know. Did you pay attention?
Maybe 2.
All right, let's see. Yay.
Yay.
All right, and I will set this to 200 and we'll see if it can take it. Now in 4/4, you can do a half measure at a time too. I'm going to go with the whole thing though here. Just like that. Some of them, we include a variation. Now, the idea of a variation is simply that, okay, now you're going to do the same thing, but there'll be something slightly different. It might be a different key, it might be a different meter, but it gets you to process the same information in a different way. It makes it stick to your brain a little bit more. So, right, so this one you're reading in A minor. With the variations, we just do a fixed score again, so it's not disappearing music, and you just read it at your own pace. And so forth. And so when you're all done, it checks that off. Once you've gone through 2 days, you get to the sight reading, and oh dear, this is something I've composed, not intentional. But anyway, again, it's a fixed score. And the idea, right, is that the computer is teaching you to read ahead. So once it's forced you to do that, you then will go through and play something and practice the skill in a more normal environment like you would at the piano. And the idea is that that'll sort of help cement the skills you worked on. And so this is just a little homage to Bartok.
And I see that with some of the exercises, you can record them.
Right, that is true with the read aheads. And we plan on doing more with this. But yes, you can, let's see, any of the read ahead exercises, when you get to the tempo page, right here, if you click record session, after you go through the piece, there'll be at that little page where I hit variation before, there'll be an option to play the recording. And then it just starts the soundtrack and puts the score up, and you get to listen to your performance and look at the score like you would, any other recording. And in fact, I find this to be really useful because a lot of times I feel some people aren't really aware of what they sound like when they're playing. And, they want the computer to score them and say, oh, your rhythm was 82% accurate and you played 7 wrong notes. But it's like, well, what are you going to do with that information? You're sight reading. You're not going to go back and fix them. But if you record it, it makes you a better listener, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's good to have that option.
Yeah, so what I want to do next for that is have a recording on day 1 of a sight reading piece, and then it stores it. And then when you get to day 12, you make a new recording, and then you can compare the recording from where you started to where you've gotten. My stepmom was a school teacher for years, and she would do that with reading with just an old tape recorder. Each kid would get a little cassette with his name on it. And like in 2nd grade, they would read and record their reading at the beginning. And then like every month they would read like for 10 seconds. And then by the end of the year, you had this 2-minute tape of them progressing.
It's a good idea.
Do you want to see anything else? I could also just show when you get to, just level 4C, just so you see the kind of pieces you're playing. They really get to be quite a bit more challenging musically. And we try to add more keys as you get further along in the levels, and more ledger lines. And I mean, there's really quite a bit of thought put into designing that. Ken and I actually had a ton of fun. We printed out each piece on a little index card, and then we would spread them all out in a big table and go through and arrange them. And that was a great way to just sort of see all the music at once.
That would have taken quite a while. And do you include any fingering for any of the music?
We actually debated that a good deal. There's a few places, like you'll see none in here. There's a few places early on where we're teaching changes in hand position, and we want to show them where to move. But, I kind of feel like the problem with putting in fingering is then people are just reading numbers and not looking at the patterns in the notes. I was playing through Beethoven's Opus 110 the other day, and there's that crazy part in the C after the C minor section where it's got this high note passage that runs down. for 4 bars. And the fingering, it's very noodly, it's really just moving all about as it goes down in the right hand. And I read through the fingering, and then I get to the repeat where they don't include the fingering, and I'm like completely worthless. Because instead of learning to read the notes, I learned to read the numbers. And it's just like sight reading when you write the letter names below the notes. You're not actually learning the notes, you're just on a crutch. So we tried not to do too much with fingering.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, thank you for showing the app.
Yeah, sure.
Do you have any plans of adding more levels, or will the level 4 be your last one?
What we're thinking about doing is sort of expanding the levels, sort of adding more days to each of the existing levels. So particularly starting with the preparatory level, but then maybe having 16 instead of 12 days in each section. Ken has sort of put together an advanced sight reading curriculum based on his Peabody curriculum. When you get to the level where you're reading at the end of 4C, you don't really need the computer to make the music disappear anymore, because you've learned that if you're able to sight read that, you're doing that anyway. And so really his more advanced material works a lot more with reduction techniques. And that's the other reason I think we try to do so much with instruction, is there's so many things and different strategies to employ when sight reading. It's like, well, what do you do when things get too dense? Well, you just start dropping out the inner voices, or, you simplify the bass and just play a pedal until you can get yourself back on top of things, or, but you sort of develop these emergency strategy situations, and they become more critical, I think, when you're reading more complex music. So he's got that already available on Graham, which is practicing the piano, I believe it's called. So it's good. But yeah, so our plans for this is really to build out within our current levels. We're talking about adding other instruments, and also talking about really just drilling down and doing accessory packs of just memory exercises that feature chord progressions, maybe a keyboard harmony based. Being sight reading is just like learning every pattern. It's just a vocabulary thing in a sense, whether it's rhythmic patterns, chord patterns, what your different seventh chords look like and all their inversions and just all that stuff, and just knowing it so that when you see it, you just do it. So I think that, we do want to move in that direction some and flush out what we've got.
So that is Read Ahead. Now, if you are interested in trying out the app, I invite you to go to the website readaheadapp.com, and you can download it to your device for free, and you can try the first 2 days of each level, and then if you like a particular level, you can then purchase it. And the exciting news I wanted to share with you about the app is that they will be releasing an Android version very soon. This is something they've been working on for quite a few months now, and they say that within the next month or so, they will be ready for the Android version. So if you are an Android user and you are interested in using the app, I invite you to reach out to Travis at this address, feedback@anacruisesllc.com, and just say that you are an Android user and you would like to be a beta tester, because they are currently looking for beta testers. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you find it useful, then remember to share it with your fellow musicians. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Happy sight reading!